Hi Year 9, it's Miss Rasmussen here with your lesson on stem cells. This is core week 4, triple, it is week 3, lesson 2. So we'll start off with our quiz again. We've got 5 questions. Question 1, what substance moves in osmosis? Question 2, what is the direction of movement in osmosis? Question 3, which organelle is where photosynthesis happens? Question 4, what can osmosis do to the mass of an object? And question 5, where does respiration happen? Okay, so pause the video, write down your answers and come back and check. So welcome back guys, checking your answers. Which substance moves in osmosis? That is water. If I get on PowerPoint to talk, yeah, that's water. The direction of movement in osmosis is from a dilute to a concentrated solution. So if you get a question about direction of movement in transport, it's what is it going from and to. Which organelle is where photosynthesis happens? That is the chloroplast or chloroplasts. What can an object do to the what can osmosis do to the mass of an object? It can make the mass increase or decrease. And then finally, where does respiration happen? Respiration happens in the mitochondria. So hopefully you've got all of those correct. These are all from your fact books and you should be learning the facts as you are going along. So what we're looking at today is stem cells. What you need to be able to do for stem cells is say what they are. So undifferentiated cells which have not specialised into a specific cell. You need to be able to say that stem cells from an embryo can turn into any type of cell, and we call those embryonic cells. Adult bone marrow cells can only turn into certain types of cells. And then stem cells in plants are called meristems, and they are found in the tips of roots and shoots. So we'll have a look at this idea of stem cells in a bit more detail. So if you go right back to the beginning, every single person started life as 2 cells, a sperm and an egg. And the sperm would have fertilised the egg, and then growth happens and you get a human being with all these different types of cells and tissues and everything else. This is made possible by stem cells. What stem cells can do is they can turn into any type of cell. So when we're talking embryonic cells, these 2 cells that start off can turn into muscle cells, fat cells, bone cells, blood cells. So they are cells that can turn into any type of cell. So we say that stem cells are undifferentiated cells which have not specialised into a specific cell. And then embryonic stem cells can turn into any type of cell. Adult bone marrow cells can only turn into cells of the immune system because that is the cells that they make. So they have partially differentiated. And then in plants, the meristems are found at the tips of growing roots and shoots because that is where the growth happens. So that's where you need the stem cells to be. Now, stem cells can be very, very useful. Especially in treating diseases and things, because if you have a disease that is damaging your cell, but you can take these stem cells and turn them into this type of cell that has been damaged, you can do treatments. We're going to have a little bit about think of the places we could get stem cells from for a human. So what you're going to do is use the information. There'll be information in the video. Please feel free to go and do your own research on this as well. We are going to look at the positives and the negatives for embryonic stem cells, umbilical stem cells and adult stem cells. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video, draw out this table, aim for one side of A4 please, and then use the information on the next slides to complete your table. And as I said, any extra information you can research would be absolutely fantastic. So for each one, you will need a description, the positives of it and the negatives. So embryonic stem cells. Many stem cells are available in embryos, and these can grow into any type of cell in the body. that means that all tissues and organs could be grown. So that's a really, really good thing. Now, embryos are produced specifically for making these stem cells and then they're discarded. This raises ethical issues because what you are doing is growing a potential life and then using it for making these cells. So a lot of people disagree with the use of embryonic stem cells. Now, we can't guarantee how successful these therapies would be. It's possible that the tissues and organs could be rejected by the immune system. It can be quite difficult to actually get these embryonic stem cells as well. And if you've got people who are really, really desperate for a cure for a disease, they could be exploited into paying for expensive treatments and also being given a false hope. So someone could say, yes, I guarantee this is going to work. And actually, stem cell therapy is still only developmental. Some trials are happening now. Some things that have looked really, really promising for embryonic stem cells is to replace cells that have been damaged or destroyed. So, for example, in diabetes, where a person's pancreas doesn't work properly, or in paralysis, where the spinal cord has been damaged. There's the possibility of actually repairing spinal cords with them. Next one we're looking at is adult stem cells. So some stem cells will remain in the body of adults as adult stem cells, and their job is to replace the body cells that are going to die normally through injury, through disease, and generally just through time. Now, they will only differentiate into cells from the type of tissue where they are found. So if you can get blood stem cells, they are only going to make blood. Brain stem cells are only going to make brain. We focus in AQA on the adult bone marrow. They can only make cells from the immune system. Massive advantage because they are from the same body. There's going to be no rejection, so we'll be getting your own stem cells, there'll be no rejection. There are no embryos involved, so ethically a lot of people think it is a lot better. And the adults can give permission for their bone marrow to be collected, so they can give consent. Some of the human stem cells that have been grown in labs have been used to treat serious diseases and also to treat some cancer-causing mutations. So there are, again, quite promising things from adult stem cells. Okay, final one we're going to look at is the umbilical cord stem cells. So this is, once a baby has been born, there will be blood left in the umbilical cord, which has got lots and lots of stem cells. These are formed from the placenta after birth, and the structure isn't needed, which means you can harvest these stem cells and then freeze them and store them for a possible use in the future to treat a medical condition. Especially be useful if there was a family with a history of a genetic disorder. They could get the umbilical cord stem cells, and then if the child develops a disorder, they could go and use the stem cells. The stem cells are from the same patient, so there would be no rejection, so that's a massive positive. There are quite a few private cord banks which will let families store the blood for a fee. So again, that's possibly not great because people could be subject to extortion over the storage. There aren't any ethical issues relating to the use of these stem cells because embryos aren't used. You do need the mother's consent because it's effectively her tissue, but they could be used to replace blood cells that have been damaged or destroyed, and they could have been destroyed from blood cancer like leukemia or lymphoma, or they could have been destroyed during a chemotherapy for cancer treatment. So again, really, really promising treatments for these cells. So make sure you've got all of your information down. I've got a summary of the answers. Yours might not be exactly the same. That is absolutely fine. So what we need to have is something looking like this. So the embryonic stem cells are embryos that are produced specifically for making stem cells. On the plus side, it can be used to replace cells that have been damaged or destroyed in diabetes or paralysis. Negatives, there's no guarantee to how successful they will be. It can be difficult to obtain and store the stem cells, and it can be very expensive and offer a false hope. For umbilical cord stem cells, what happens is after birth, stem cells are collected from the blood left in the umbilical cord. On the plus side, we can freeze and store these cells for later use. We can use them in treatment for blood cancer or to reduce the effects of chemotherapy. And there are no ethical issues because the embryos aren't being used. On the negative side, you will probably have to pay to store the cells, which can lead to extortion or people not being able to afford to do it. Then finally, the adult stem cells. So adult stem cells can be harvested and used. These cells would not be rejected, and they have been used to treat serious diseases. And the final positive is that adults can give consent. They will know what they're signing up to. The big negative with your adult stem cells is that they only differentiate into cells from the tissue that they are taken from. So it is much more limited what they can actually be used to treat. So that is the key bits of stem cells. What you need to learn is, again in your fact books, is that stem cells are undifferentiated cells which have not specialised into a specific cell. The stem cells from an embryo can turn into any type of cell, and we call these embryonic cells. Adult bone marrow cells can only turn into certain types of cells. And then stem cells in plants are called meristems, and they are found in the tips of the roots and shoots. So that is it on stem cells. Next lesson we will be looking at organisation. So I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, look after yourselves.